Weird incident at my first job. This story is gruesome. Happened 7 years ago. This is a true story. I won't go into a lot of detail about what prompted me to think about this event. Mostly, I was just upset about having a bad day at work earlier. I then reflected on my first job. I worked for the local city with Public Works Department doing hazardous material cleanup. Essentially, my job was to help clean up after car crashes, among a few other smaller roles. Often, after a car crash, the aftermath is insane. Glass and debris strewn everywhere on the road. Blood staining the street. Sometimes even body parts found not too far from what mangled automobile the unfortunate victims left behind. I hated that job. One specific incident happened one Saturday morning, like early, right after dawn. I was called to come to some feeder road that led to a busy highway. At that early hour, there was almost nobody on it yet. I remember it was brutally bright outside for some reason. Maybe I had stayed out too late the night before, but I forgot my sunglasses and squinting most of the time. Anyway, as I drove up to the site of car crash, the usual scene was there. Cop cars, someone trying to direct the non-existent traffic. Then there was a guy standing next to a motorcycle. He was tall and dressed in black, like all in black. Black dress pants, black dress shoes, and a black short-sleeve dress shirt. His shirt was the weirdest thing. It had no collar or something, from what I can recall. His bike seemed fine, but in front of it, about 20 feet ahead, was a car parked on the side. It was this really nice sports car, an older red Ferrari, I think. Super nice but old, from the 1960s or so. At least according to what I recall one of the officers saying. I parked at the side of the road behind the closest squad car. I remember the air had this really acrid taste to it, like some kind of fire had just happened. This happens with bad wrecks. The odd thing here, though, was that, at first glance, neither the motorcycle nor the car seemed burnt. I approached the car to get a quick look, which I was always nervous about. I had no idea what I would see when I came to a new wreck. A lot of times, unless they had already towed the vehicle, it would have remnants of the people in the car. Blood-soaked seats, globs of hair stuck to the partially pulled-down visor, bloody hair clips. The worst were the teeth. You could find them on the road or buried in part of the dashboard. Obviously, nowadays there are airbags galore in vehicles, but when this happened, it was years ago. If the person wasn't buckled up in one of these older cars, the carnage was gruesome. Plus, I come from a county that is a bit poorer, so there is no shortage of older cars on the roads. After I got close to the car, I noticed a few things immediately jump out at me. One was that the front end of the car was damaged. It was obvious it hit something, but it didn't crumble like a modern car. The other thing was the inside was slightly damaged. The driver's seat was burnt, and so was part of the steering wheel. It wasn't too bad, though, more like someone had dropped a cigarette, and it burnt rather than some kind of explosive fire due to the crash. Oh, and the teeth. They were there, several lodged right into the steering wheel. I started to get to work, but a cop came over and said not to worry about it. They were going to have some forensics come in, and I would have to wait around to see if they needed me. While I waited, I saw the cop grill the dude standing next to the motorcycle. They asked him where the driver of the car was, and a bunch of other things. The guy dressed in black spoke with a weird European accent and apologized about something, but he didn't seem too upset. They eventually put cuffs on him and drove him off in a squad car. Anyway, that was it. I waited around the wreck for over an hour waiting to get the go-ahead to start work. It was so bright outside. They eventually towed the car somewhere else, so I didn't have anything to do. All in all, that wreck was on the lighter side. I don't recall that they ever found the victim or the owner of the vehicle. Maybe they did, but obviously that didn't have anything to do with me at that point. I know this might not be the scariest of stories, but it's a real thing that happened to me that I just remembered and wanted to write it down. I don't know why, but of all the experiences that I had at that crappy job, that one incident is the one that stuck with me the most. Oh, one last thing that was really strange. While I was waiting, sitting there on the curb under the bright morning, one of the guys from CSI was taking photos of the car. After a bit, he reached in with an instrument and pulled out one of the teeth. Once it was out, I saw the whole thing. It was the longest and sharpest tooth that I had ever seen in my life.